Hey, what's up, Broker Playbook? This is Adriana Bates in this shivering cold Kansas City right now, wanting to teach you a quick class regarding the systems within your business and how to track their success. So without further ado, let's just get started. In the mortgage industry, how we view our business is, I think, pretty simple. Everything is simple, but it's not easy, right? We always talk about that. So how I'm looking at my business today is in three microsystems within our overall mortgage business. The first microsystem would be marketing. How do we attract people to send us business? How do we actually talk to the consumer and get them to apply with our company? The second system would be what happens once that application takes place. How do we cultivate, nurture, take care of our clients, make them feel special? And then the third system, and maybe arguably the most important system, would be the post-closing. How do we stay in touch with our clients? How do we make this actually a residual business? So one of the reasons that I'm on Broker Playbook today is, I think, because I've broken down those systems, realized the KPIs that we have to track and manage within each system, and then created true job descriptions and minimum expectations for our management to manage those systems. So let's start with the first one, with our marketing. Okay, so in this marketing microsystem, we have how many times we reach out to our past clients and on what days. So those are for our salespeople to actually handle. The item of value that we are sending out once a month, that is for our marketing team to handle. That same item of value that we are actually emailing out once per month, again, for marketing to handle. And then all of the social media posts that we are hitting on surrounding that same piece of marketing for our social team to handle. Okay, so did you get it all? The loan officers and your salespeople, they have to make sure that they are hitting on, we call them their referral partners, their centers of influence. They are doing all those sales activities. But then your marketing team would be doing the monthly mailer, which is, yes, snail mail. Snail mail still does something. Then number two would also be the email blast. Okay, it's still, make sure you're using BombBomb or some technology that allows you to track the open rate, allows you to see what's actually, being opened or not. And then thirdly, your social system, which is probably, I go back and forth, which systems are most important, but your social, that is probably where the most direct-to-consumer interaction is happening for us right now. So when we say direct-to-consumer, this is before they're actually clients. This is when consumers are thinking of buying a home, are considering refinancing, hearing all this buzz, and then they're really earning our trust through our social system, okay? So system number one, we call that marketing, all right? The way that we manage this for our sales staff, the KPIs that we are looking at, so you look at leading factors and then you look at lagging factors, okay? So your leading factors would be how many calls, proactive calls that they're making. And we track this per day, guys. So yes, that might seem like we're micromanaging. We're not micromanaging. We are truly coaching our sales staff to hit the metrics that they need to hit from the goals that they set with us for 2021. So for example, if I have one loan officer that says they want to make $500,000 in a year, we know that they need to bring in 8 prospects per day, let's just say, depending on whatever their conversions are. So with that, in our CRM, we use Salesforce. Everyone's CRM is different. I'm not going to go into a whole pros cons with each CRM. We use Salesforce, which was built out with an overlay of Jungo. And what we have tracked, and this will make sense to anyone that uses Salesforce, but in our objects, we actually track hellos, okay? So it's a little button that the sales staff has to click in a contact when they actually have a proactive conversation to talk about business. That is considered a hello. Our goal for our sales staff is 13 hellos per day. If we just use that number, if they try to hit that number, if they are hitting that number, they will definitely be on pace for their goals for the year, okay? So that is an example of a KPI for our sales staff. All right. The other KPIs that we use to track are actual face-to-face meetings. And since COVID has happened, we actually count Zooms. All right. But we notice that there's a much, much higher cancellation rate for Zooms, which I think is weird. You would think that they would cancel more if they were doing a face-to-face. Who knows? Maybe people, agents, CPAs, financial advisors really like free lunches and free coffees. Who knows? Zooms are canceling more frequently for us, or no shows. So our face-to-face meetings are either Zooms or truly face-to-face. We're in Kansas City. I would say we're about middle of the road with the COVID restrictions, so we can still meet to face. It really depends on the comfort level of who we're meeting with. And then the third thing that we are tracking is how many application links are actually sent out. Okay, so this is the, we do everything via online. I think everyone does that now. If you're still taking paper applications or over the phone, I mean, that's a case by case basis, but you're really, I mean, it's just a big time suck. And I think a lot of the information sometimes can be inaccurate. So what we're looking at is how many phone calls or hellos, how many face-to-face or Zoom meetings, and then how many application links are sent out. So those are our KPIs that we are actually tracking, okay, from the very beginning in our marketing bubble, all right? So our marketing system, those are for our loan officers. The reason that we are so adamant about tracking these numbers is because from an ownership, so my husband and I own our brokerage. I manage the salespeople. I'm all about sales. I am not an operations hat wearer. I understand the importance of operations, but trust me, in that operations and sales fight, I'm always pro sales. So he helps balance that by really standing up for and managing the operations side. So the reason that we track these, number one, is so that I can see who's actually contributing, who's holding up their weight, and see who gets the most of my attention. So it truly is, as a broker owner, since I am still producing, a balance of where do I spend my time. I spend the most time with people that are actually putting in the work. Okay. So the reason that I track these, number one, is to see who I should be coaching and who's actually doing the activities. Number two, we do it to proactively understand when we are going to need to hire more operational staff. It is always nice to see when our meetings are taking off and we're actually doing more meetings, when we can actually see referrals coming in, when we can see the number of applications that are actually completed, because then we can see when we're going to have that influx of actual loans. So I hate being reactionary in this industry, but it's kind of the nature of the beast where you're like, oh my gosh, we now have 95 loans in our pipeline that are active. We are probably going to need to add a processor. Our poor current processors are so overwhelmed and that we might lose some staff. So the reason that we are so adamant about tracking and looking at KPIs is so we can be a little bit more proactive and less reactive in our hiring. All right. So I know I'm all over the place, but trust me, there's structure here. So we are still in the marketing system. Okay. I was just talking about the actual LOs and what the sales staff is responsible for. All right. So they're responsible for having the conversations, closing the business, and getting actual applications in. What I have my marketing team do is we have a system for our actual advertising and direct to our consumer, direct to our database marketing. So we do send out an item of value one time per month. All right. That same item of value is then emailed one time per month. And then obviously we send more emails. So we send that to the entire database. For the direct mail, we actually just do a select. It's the most recent closes. We actually mail those out. And then the third piece to that is our social. So our social, which is Insta, Facebook, and TikTok, then surrounds that item of value. So we try to do some funny, cutesy videos that actually do help or support that item of value. I don't have true data on this yet. This is something that we really got good at influencing or implementing, I would say the second half of 2020. So this is something that we're still working. We're still trying to track some of the results for this, but in hopes that with our marketing efforts, if we kind of have a theme for the month, that it'll make a little bit more sense for our clients and use that reticular activator or whatever that brain, some psychologists talked about it. When you hear something over and over, you actually start seeing it. So we're hoping to start to trigger on some of that psychology where our clients then think about the situation or think about the marketing that we're putting out and then refer people over that fit within that situation. So marketing bubble. KPIs for your sales staff, and then your marketing team, which will be hard mail or snail mail, email, and then social. I do have a marketing manager. That was one thing that really made a difference in owning the brokerage. Before, I was wearing all the hats and it was honestly exhausting, and I never felt like I did anything great because I was pulled in so many different directions. So within your systems of your business, as you grow, you will have to have management so that you can have meetings just with that specific person to manage that system. Okay. So as our clients move through that, the marketing system, then they actually apply. There is truly another system within our business on what happens from the time of application all the way through the time that they actually sign the docs for closing. All right. And I know everyone has where they think are key points or key communication times or key contacts within that system. We've identified ours to be a couple of numbered areas, and I'll go through that really quickly. But also, yes, we rely heavily on technology, but we still want to have that personal touch. So we are one of those believers that the sales staff is responsible for keeping all parties in the loop. So on a refinance, that would be the borrower themselves, maybe the CPA that encouraged them to refinance, or maybe the financial advisor that encouraged them to refinance. But on a refinance, it's truly the borrower and the referral source for that. On the purchase, however, though, you do have other people that you want to keep in the loop with the transaction. So that would be the borrower, and then I would say the buyer's agent and the seller's agent for a couple of key milestones. I don't like to over communicate with the seller's agent because I feel like in this crazy market, they have enough going on that we don't want to be that drowning kind of over communicative salesperson. I really leave that for the end, and then you go in for the close to see if you can get a meeting. So the key performance indicators in this is obviously how many submissions that we have each week, how many approvals that we have each week, which are, conditional approvals coming out, and then how many clear to closes and how many closings. So we look at that on a weekly basis to see where our influx is, so we know when we are going to implement overtime for our operational staff, and just so that we can have, again, a little bit more of a proactive approach. Because let's be honest, I would love to say that we're perfect, that our organization is perfect. There are some fires, there are mistakes that are made where owners do have to still get involved, where it's above our management level. So I just kind of know, and I balance my schedule accordingly to know when we are going to have those huge influxes of closing, because let's be honest, that's when I have to get involved the most, okay? So I do have an operational manager that does manage the entire pipeline, and then also manages the key performance indicators and make sure we don't have a clog or a backlog within our, I like to say, conveyor belt. And some of the key points, which I know is something that you guys are looking for or what you want to implement in your business, would be, we always reach out when the application's received, obviously, and give proper expectation on when they will hear whether or not they are approved or credit impaired or what they have to do to get approved, okay? Once they are approved, we call those our PALs, the pre-approved and looking clients. Those are reached out one time per week with a rotation of a phone call, a text message, or a social media DM. Okay, that is becoming more and more popular. So really those conversations are just, hey, are you looking at any homes this weekend? Or how did the home search go over the weekend? Things like that. Do you need us to run any numbers for you? We always kind of link them back to our calculator so that we don't have to run all of these payment scenarios. But so there is like a true little microsystem within a system of our PALs, which are pre-approved and looking. Once they are under contract, we obviously set the expectation very appropriately for the borrower, for the buyer's agent, and for the listing agent. That is the salesperson's job. They are the ones that are selling us, selling the team, and selling themselves that communication will be top-notch throughout this entire transaction. So throughout that, from contract in through closing, the key pieces are once they're to the client themselves is when their rate is locked and when their disclosures are out, and then what their next steps are and what they're missing to get into underwriting. For the buyer's agent, the listing agent, and for the borrower themselves, once that conditional approval comes out, obviously we don't tell the listing agent what the conditions are, but we do let them know that the loan has been approved. And this looks really, really good because the lenders that we are working with right now have very fast turn times. So this looks really good that our conditional approval is coming out so quickly from when the contract was received. Upon appraisal order, we do always verify with the listing agent what phone number they want us to call. It's very frustrating when the appraiser's like, hey, I can't get a hold of the listing agent, or they're not responding. It's another touch point to always just verify, hey, what number do you actually want our appraiser to call to contact you to get that scheduled? Once the appraisal is received, obviously that is a phone call to the buyer, to the buyer's agent, and then a phone call to the listing agent or a text. Obviously, we don't tell them the value. We just let them know that the value is in and that the appraisal is as is, or no repairs are required. And then obviously the clear to close. That's the big celebration. That's where it's mandatory within our organization to ask for that Google review. Reminder, don't be pushing your Zillow reviews any longer. I think they've taken off that platform, not for agents and for lenders. So we are really pushing our Google business presence. Brianna did a great class on that. So push those reviews for them to put it at the clear to close. Do not ask for it after they've closed. They don't care about you anymore once you've closed. They're like, done. There was a lot to focus on. They don't want one more thing to worry about. So always on that clear to close, ask for that review. And then obviously, once the docs are balanced, which I found with title companies in our area anyways, is becoming closer and closer to closing day. So really be communicative with the client to let them know when they can expect that final number. Let them know that you are waiting on the title company to balance and get final figures from the seller's side, just so that they don't think it's you not communicating with them. We've learned that kind of the hard way, to say, hey, we are waiting on a couple things from the title company. As soon as we have them, we will take you through with a phone conversation all of your numbers. And then we use BombBomb to actually show them their final closing disclosure and take them through it as if they were sitting next to us at the closing table. I found super amounts of success with that. If you aren't doing that, that's one thing that you can implement right away. Use BombBomb to actually record your screen with your little picture in the bottom, explaining each line item, what it is, particularly if you are a broker and going through like the borrower page, so that you can be like, hey, this is your charge, but don't worry, I'm offsetting it with a lender credit right here, just so that they're not looking through each section, particularly section A, and getting a little bit confused on that final closing disclosure. So that is the contract to close system, okay, managed by our operational manager. All right. So to recap, marketing system has a manager, a marketing manager that I have meetings with only with the marketing manager. Everything else that goes on is really, truly, she's the one that gets me the KPI, so I can look at those numbers before our meetings. So I'm not in the data a ton. If I have someone that isn't performing on the sales side and the marketing side, that is obviously a conversation that I have with them directly, but it's nice to have those numbers so I'm not digging through data before we actually have that meeting. Then the contract to close system, which is managed by our operations manager. This is someone that knows the business, has probably been a processor before, but I have very, very clear expectations of milestones that need to be hit and when fires need to be brought to my attention. So one of the things that I've implemented very recently is something called, when they come to me with an issue, I ask them always, how would you solve this? Before I answer, I already know what I'm going to do. I already know how I would handle this. But what I do want them to do is kind of enable themselves to solve these problems. And so that I have to be involved less in the day-to-day and really encourage them to say, okay, I understand that you're concerned about this. How would you fix it? What would you do first? And then have them try to solve it themselves before I come up with the final solution. Or in most cases, I'll be like, yep, that's what you need to do. Go ahead, run with it. Finally, our post-closing system. Again, what I think might be one of the most important pieces is that 1 time per quarter touch. If you're not implementing that with your sales staff, implement that right away. So use the alphabet method. If you don't know what that is, we can take that on for another class if that's something simple. I also think HomeBot is a great way to stay in touch with your clients. It always sparks communication. Always, they might send you a message on some sort of interest that they have in the market. They might be interested in different neighborhoods, but it's also an item of value when they do mention that they're thinking of selling, and you can bring that back to their agent, because that is bringing a deal to the table for them, which, as you guys know, isn't always the most frequent thing that happens in our business. Another thing that we do in post-closing, we do implement the Popeyes. So if you're not a Buffini coacher, Popeyes, not Popeye's chicken, but it's Popeye. So it's a little gimmicky gift that sometimes I think it's gimmicky, but people think it's cute. And we'll do little things just for our referral partners and also for our past clients. Try to, for your top referral partners and for your clients that refer you, try to touch on them once a quarter with a gift at least. I've heard some people do it once a month. I think if you do it once a month, I just think it gets like the wow factor just kind of goes away a little bit. So, and I always put a little tagline on our tags to tag us on social. So if we do get tagged, then we always raffle off a gift card or something like that for anyone that tags us on social. The reason that I say the post-closing system is the most important is because that's what makes us a truly residual business. That is what consistently brings deals to the table. And that is what consistently builds your business without you actively having to do so. So 3 systems. And for the post-closing, I don't have a manager for that yet. That is something that we implement through our CRM, through Salesforce. There's tasks that pop up for the loan officers to handle that themselves. If they're not doing it, that's on them. However, I do want it done entirely and consistently for our business. So that's something that I'm working on now, is how can we consistently implement a post-closing campaign and have it done without me having to do it and manage it myself. So those are the 3 systems: marketing, contract in, and then post-closing. So again, this is Adriana with Clear Mortgage. Those are the 3 systems, how we manage it. If you need the expectations and the job descriptions for each of those positions, let me know. That is something that I have kind of drawn up. The hardest thing I think for most broker owners is building out those expectations, but then inspecting what you expect. I think that's where a lot of us fail because we want to create it, set it, and forget it. What we don't really realize is that it is a lot of work to actually manage it. So that is what we're working on now. Again, Adriana Bates, Clear Mortgage here in Kansas City. Hope this provided some value, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.